What even is a French seam? Welcome back to Fabric School. Let's talk about seams. A French seam is used to sew two pieces of fabric together while also encasing the raw edges. Because of this, the seam is really good for lightweight, thinner fabrics, especially if those fabrics are sheer, because you can often see through the fabric, the seam and the seam allowance, and to have that look as clean as possible, a French seam is always a good choice. They're not good, however, if you have very curved seams or if you have points in there or anything, because then you have very bulky, thick seam allowance that can't really go around the curves, so that doesn't really work. To sew a French seam, you first sew your fabrics together left sides facing each other, which feels very wrong when you're doing it. Then you trim the seam allowance, fold it over, iron it, and sew again right sides facing each other. It's really important that the seam allowance is trimmed the right amount to make sure that number one, the stitch doesn't come undone, and number two, that your seam allowance doesn't start fraying or peeking out of the finished seam, but it's cut back enough. So those are the things that you can look for on a French seam. Number one, is the seam coming undone, or on the outside, is there individual pieces of thread hanging out? If there is, they didn't really pay attention to detail. That's not a good sign.